what is chametz? Chametz it's really 5 grains plus 18 minutes. Heated for 18 minutes equals chametz. That's the equation. So what are the 5 grains? The 5 grains can be remembered with an acronym, BROWS. BROWS. It's barley, rye, oat, wheat, and spelt. BROWS. So anything made from those products that's heated for 18 minutes, baked for 18 minutes, then it becomes chametz. So there's certain prohibitions connected to the chametz. We are not allowed to eat chametz, obviously. We're not allowed to have benefit from it. That means like selling it or even like feeding it to your animal. You don't have to benefit from it. You also on Passover you can't even in your property, right? That's why we go through all these efforts of removing it or nullifying it, burning it, selling it. We can't even own it. So those are 3 things: eating, benefiting, and owning. And one more, the Torah also mandates us to get rid of it, to tashbitu, to get rid of chametz. So now, chametz isn't just what we think is just like breaded objects. It can be a mixture of chametz and other things. So here are like some food items that people might mistakenly think that they're not chametz, but they are. For instance, you have certain cereals that it could be like corn flakes that have some chametz in them, one of the other 5 grains. So you have to be careful of that. It could be all kinds of cereals that even their secondary ingredient or not primary ingredient is made from one of these 5 grains. We have to be careful of that. Tortillas that are made from flour. Some might think that those aren't. Bourbon, sauces and soups like in cans. Sometimes there's like flour, a thickener in there. So you have to be careful when it comes to them. Granola bars, oatmeal. Okay, that's one of the 5 grains. Licorice has wheat in it. Beer, obviously wheat. And so those are some just items that sometimes people might not think are chametz. In practice, we kind of try to look for this kosher supervision certification on them. It says it's kosher for Passover. In another installation, one of the rabbis is going to speak about, or the chazan is going to speak about food items that might not need kosher for Passover symbol. But that's not in this talk. Also, even a crumb's worth of chametz, we're not allowed to eat on Passover. Okay, so it's a serious thing. We have to think about what's the big issue with chametz? Like, why are we so nervous around it? Why are we so careful to remove it? So here are a few reasons that are offered for why we stay away from chametz. The classic one is that our bread didn't have time to rise as we escaped Egypt, and so therefore we want to kind of create a reality as if we're going out of Egypt. So we're very careful with removing chametz for the reason that we want to create this like sterilized environment. We are like we are in Egypt. All we had was matzah, and we're dependent on God. So it's to kind of reenact this so we can think about that. Another direction that's often taken is we're trying to remove chametz is puffed up. So it's commonly as compared to matzah, it's like kind of like humble and simple. And so we want to, as we enter into the new year of Nisan, according to the Torah, we want to enter with humility and kind of as we begin to receive the Torah for 49 days later, we want to enter with humility. So we eat matzah instead of like puffed up bread, which symbolizes the ego. We want to remove the ego. Finally, 2 other ones. One more is, I heard this in the name of Dennis Prager. He said that chametz, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, the Egyptians were the first Egyptians apparently discovered allowing wheat doughs to ferment, thus forming gases, produced a light expanded loaf. Apparently, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, they developed loaves of bread. I don't know. I wasn't there, and I can't attest to if it's true or not. But according to this, at least, they say that they were involved. They kind of discovered in some ways that. So we want to kind of stay as far as we can from Egypt. Not just Egypt, all their products, their main staple. We want to remove ourselves from that. And maybe we could think, while we're doing that we want to stay away from the mode of living of the Egyptians, how they enslaved, how they manipulated, all those negative ways of behavior. We should try to remove them ourselves from that. Finally, just one more thought I had. We think on Sukkot. On Sukkot, we enter into a temporary dwelling. We're supposed to kind of feel that our man-made dwellings are not, we're trying to be not dependent on them, and recognize Hashem in the center. Perhaps that's what we're doing with the chametz. We're trying to, when we take bread, we take wheat, and we apply heat to it, and we create our loaves. That's kind of a man-made product. Loaves don't come down from heaven. We have to create them. So we allow ourselves to have the most basic type of matzah that we can eat, but it's not as symbolic of man-made, human-made products as bread is. So perhaps during this time, we're trying to strengthen our dependence on God, to realize not only our shelter on Sukkot is dependent on God, but all of our sustenance really. Sometimes people have more money, sometimes they have less. It's all really dependent on God's blessing. And perhaps we're supposed to be thinking about that in the holiday of Passover, because that's the time we were kind of fully redeemed by Hashem, to kind of reenact that and try to think about our dependence on Hashem, not just in terms of our shelter on Sukkot, but also our sustenance during that time. So that's another reason for that. So for all those reasons, we should try to stay away from chametz, and God willing, we'll learn more about this in the upcoming days.